Hello, everyone, and welcome to this next in our series of video conversations with leaders in our industry. I'm Tim Rowan, and this podcast is brought to you by Home Care Technology, the Rowan Report. I'm very pleased to be welcoming today Keith Crownover, the president of Delta Health Technologies, as well as Tony Ott, the CEO of Delta. So, gentlemen, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
I want to spend some time talking with you today about the industry in general and where you see things going. You know, there's a lot of changes in Medicare. We are dealing with some changes, serious changes in the PDGM rule. Home care private duty is growing like crazy. And Delta has been around for so long. You've seen a number of changes like this. I wonder if I could start with you, Keith. We have been friends for a long time, and I want you to tell people how long you've been in the industry, what you've seen, and
it's been a long ride. I recently sort of Dr. What I've seen, and I started as a computer in 1980, operating mainly floppy disk and card readers and mag tapes and all the things no one understands anymore. And I was privileged to join a company that was very focused on developing talent, and I had an associate degree in computer science. And I was hired by Delta, started in the computer operations area. Within 4 months, I was given my first promotion, and it's been a fun 19 years. The product was statistical reporting and bills and cash processing and the very basic fundamentals that an organization would need. In the early 90s, Delta was the first company to release a reliable, dependable, repeatable clinical automation system. We weren't the first to release clinical automation, but our clinical system was the first to really take root. And we've continued to extend that focus on the holistic approach to care in the home, as we like to refer to it as. And we've seen all the regulatory changes. Back in those days, we were cost reimbursed, and things were sort of like the wild, wild west compared to today. As things got more and more sophisticated, reimbursement became tied to quality and to clinical outcomes, and suddenly it no longer became a financial or a clinical worldview. It became, how do we holistically approach and support an organization? So we went through PPS and all the acronym soups, IPS before that, and it's really been fascinating on two levels. What changes have we seen, which are dramatic, and also what hasn't changed, which I think is particularly interesting as well. So again, a long history. I was fortunate to join the company that allowed me to grow as the company was growing. And in 1998, I became Delta's general manager. At that time, we were actually owned by a hospital IT company. And in 2017, Tony and I joined forces together, and we continue the ride today. And Delta, in those 38 years I've been with the company, Delta actually started in 1968. So a very long tenure. I wasn't the founder. I wasn't the first employee, certainly not. But a long tenure and a continuous thread of management from those very early days until the present time. Again, a long history. I'll reserve some time for other discussions. But it's been fascinating to see both what has changed and what has remained constant.
I want to get into those details about both what has changed and what has remained constant. But you mentioned 2017, and I understand, Tony, that you have known Keith a lot longer than the time. I was looking back over the article that I wrote about the time that the two of you got together, and you didn't start with Delta as a CEO, did you?
Yeah, so I'll give you a little bit of history. My home care experience doesn't go back quite as far as Keith's, but it does go back a ways. So in 1990, my first job really out of high school while I was going to college was with Medical Personnel Pool in Dayton, Ohio. So a throwback name there in the industry. And so I was taking computer classes in college and working in the payroll department. There was no online scheduling, so timesheets would come in and we would key them in. Ended up being associated with Medical Personnel Pool and then interim up until 96 when I left the industry. My wife and I moved to New York. I took a new position and really was out of home care for that time. I still stayed in touch with management of Interim Healthcare, and we were friends. And when I relocated back to Ohio in 2008, I became the CIO of the Interim Healthcare group in the Ohio and area, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, West Virginia, Indiana. So this area, the Interim Healthcare. So 2008, I took a job as the CIO of that group. So back to the same group I had been with back in 1990, and I'd come back. So that gave me, things had changed in home care, but a lot hadn't changed. So it was interesting to be back. My experience with Keith goes prior to our acquisition of Delta and us coming together, we had done consulting work together. The consulting group that I was running, Salo Solutions, had built some BI tools to work along with Delta. So we had definitely had some nice business relationship prior to coming together. So Keith mentioned 2017, so December of 2017, the group that some of the investors that own the Interim Healthcare offices, some of that same ownership group went and purchased Delta Health Technologies. So we're not really associated corporate-wise with Interim, but there are some shared owners, and I still have some connections back to that Interim group even today. So I really come from the provider side and the IT side. As I left in '96, I went on to a position really pure IT and consulting, not anything to do with healthcare. And then coming back now, since 2008, being on the provider side, it's been interesting joining forces with Keith, who is on the software side, seeing how bringing that our concerns at being part of Interim Healthcare and what it's like to be part of a software company, bringing those together have been very exciting.
It seems to me that is one of the most important things that a home health software company needs, is the input from users, from the provider side. So talk to me about how the two of you have worked together these last 3 years with that relationship, with the different backgrounds.
Yeah, I think it's, I'll speak from my side. From my side, it's actually gone great. Keith knows so much about the industry and so much about that side that was new to me. And also Keith had the expertise in what it was like to run a software company. So it was nice to have him right there along with me. Sometimes these things happen and, well, previous leadership, they're there for a little transition, and then that's all it was. That's not what this was about. It was about building a stronger company where we can work together. So it's been nice success where we have open, honest communication, and we both bring a different vantage point to the conversation. So I think that's been a great part of why we have been successful.
Well, Keith, you've always wanted user input, customer input, but has it been an advantage to have somebody like Tony coming from the provider world
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we work well together. I'm not exactly, but about 10 years older than Tony, so it's kind of an interesting. As I said, I still consider myself a young person, and I'm not ready to hang up my hat just yet. We have a good relationship. We complement each other well, and I really appreciate Tony's open style of management. We have a great discourse, but it always does come back to the customer. And what does the customer want? What does the customer need? And we both have lived that world where if billing is down or clinical is down, the world comes to a stop. You got to take care of those things operationally. So that instant focus, that realization that time is truly money, and clinically it's important from a clinical standpoint as well in terms of the patient's lives and conditions, that we work very well together, and that focus is complementary, again, from Tony coming from the operational side in many ways, and then the professional service side, and my experience coming from the software side and meeting with many customers in good and bad times. And it's really worked well. By my quick count, I think this is my 5th corporate transition in my Delta experience. And they've all been interesting and positive. There's certainly been challenging times over 38 years of history, but the relationship between Tony and I, between our two organizations, has truly been complementary, and it really is a great launching point. I'm not as involved in the day-to-day operations of Interim because I'm in Altoona, Pennsylvania, our headquarters, but I, along with some of the other thought leaders from Delta, are occasionally invited to attend strategic planning sessions. When PDGM came out, for instance, when the first regulations were brought out, yes, we had national sources like NAC and other organizations we could learn from, but we also had the advantage as software providers to go and sit with an organization of the size and professionalism of Interim in Columbus to say, how are we going to handle this? What's this mean to our caregivers? So it really has taken our industry visibility to another level of depth and detail. So it's been a great working relationship, and we've grown since the transaction, and that we are working together and growing resources and focusing on developing more and more innovative products. So it's been a great ride.
It's always good to see a 50-year-old company innovating and keeping up with the times and moving on. And speaking of moving on, this is what we're looking at this year. As people are watching this, we're in the early days of 2021. The vaccine is just rolling out. There are still patients who are afraid to let nurses into their homes. We're in Medicare, we're dealing with the no pay wrap, and then in another year it'll be gone completely. And of course, we're looking at the growth that's happening in the private duty non-medical side of the business. So with the background that you've given us, Keith, can you give us an idea of what Delta's plans are? How are you coping with and preparing your customers to cope with all of these things coming along?
A lot coming along, isn't there? Great question. In fact, as we were recording this, simultaneously, our product teams and customer experience teams are holding a webinar with our customers to talk about PDGM in 2021. So very timely. Happy to be here with you today, Tim, and with your audience. But that's what's happening right now, that high touch, high intensity focus with our customers. We do a lot of work with customer work groups who give us input into product design as we do our agile development style here at Delta. And we've worked very closely with our customers. We're also very fortunate, again, based on our longevity, we have a very comprehensive system, and we've learned along the way that when it comes to regulatory changes, it's always best to build in some flexibility. So something like the no-bill wrap, we've had the ability to just change a setting. We didn't have to rewrite code from the very beginning. Thankfully, our designers were wise enough to build in a setting that we could change in terms of what is the deadline to get this wrap out the door. So for us, it was a simple change, communication, and the customers could themselves make the change to change that setting from our default, which was 7 days, to 1 or 2 days based on the recommendations. So that's one thing that we've done. Again, you mentioned COVID. We can't talk about 2021 and vaccinations and the transition without talking about COVID and how that's impacted everything. In our software, we had some software tools already, which allowed us to send text messages out to clinicians. We've taken that again to the next level. And we're building a product platform which is allowing us to use that chat feature bidirectionally and more engaged in the workflow. So first focus, first priority, making sure we're doing the COVID surveys back and forth between the caregivers and the office, able to apply intelligence to flag responses that contain keywords like fever, not feeling well, sick, what have you. The user can determine those, and then routing those based on those keywords to the right person at the office, at the agency, so that they can make the determination of follow-up. If we have a staff member who's not feeling well, what's our next step? So again, we were fortunate to already have in place some tools which allow this chat feature and text feature, and it's now we've now taken it to the next level. Something we were just now bringing out and it's in live use, but we've not yet launched it to the marketplace at large, but we'll be doing so in the next few weeks.
I'm going to bring both of you back in and see if we can do a deeper dive into that. You have, like you said, been through a lot of changes in your years at Delta. Tony, your experience in the last 3 years, talk to me about what your opinion is of where this company is going. And while Tony's talking, Keith, I want you to think about the next question, which is the industry at large and where it's going and what we need to be prepared for. So Tony, what do you see in Delta's future?
Well, for Delta, we're trying to make sure our platforms are flexible and able to handle the complexities of these organizations. What we found, the old days of someone just being a Medicare shop, doesn't seem to exist anymore. Our systems need to be able to have one record for the patient, regardless of where they are in the continuum of care. If they're receiving private duty services or Medicare services or hospice services or some combination. So that's our focus, is to make sure that our product can continue to do that. And we think our product does that better than other products in the industry today, but that's the continued focus. And we also want our product is focused on the caregiver. It's one thing to sit here and talk about 837s and 835s and operational things back in the office, but the more we can let our technology enable those caregivers, right? Our customers are being asked to do more with less. Reimbursements aren't going through the roof, that's for sure. Their regulations are going up, their requirements are going up. So we want our technology to be able to enable that caregiver. It's about the nurse, it's about the home health aide, the therapist in the home. So our focus as a company is about that last piece. How can we make things better for them, make things smooth, help them communicate back with the office, those types of things. As a company, we think Delta's on a very good track. We think we have some exciting new things coming out, as Keith alluded to, and also refreshing, as every software company, refreshing some things that need refreshed. But we feel like we're in a really good spot.
Great. Thanks, Tony. So Keith, where are we going from here? You mentioned you've been around since 1983. You've seen a lot of changes, most of which were unpredictable. Nobody could have predicted IPS. Nobody knew exactly the impact of OASIS and A, B, C, and D following after OASIS, and everything the way it has been changing. The changes are going to keep coming. So what does the industry need? Where do you see us going within the context of the entire U.S. healthcare system?
Well, that's a great question. And I smiled when you started asking it, because that is sort of the basis of my everything's changed, but everything's the same comment. You're right, IPS was a complete surprise. And one would say not a great surprise, because it wasn't well thought out, wasn't well executed in terms of how that regulation came to be and the fairness of it. But staying out of the politics of the regulatory environment, to your question, I could look back and answer the question and say that the major themes are still the same. We have a brochure that I pulled out of my desk drawer recently that said it was generated back in we'll call it 87, 88 for this purpose. And the theme was the time-saving company. Well, we think a number one priority we have and our customers have for us is to save time. In the old days, that was easier. Big moving targets like a 485 form, which was done on paper, and that seems like so long ago. Well, as time has marched on, as technology has become more and more a part of our lives and more available to us, we're now looking at smaller and smaller increments of clinician time. And that time certainly is not only money, but it's quality. And most important, in our view, it's clinician satisfaction and retention, which we know is another key overarching theme. Not changed. It's the tools and the intensity, the net gain. A lot more work for less gain, I guess, as we develop tools. But those things continue. Another overarching theme, which is being accelerated, is the consumer aspects, a consumer-driven aspect to care at home. And you mentioned the non-medical care, private duty. We've been talking about this for a long time, but it's here now as we baby boomers, Tony excluded, as we baby boomers age, and we have more resources, and we're a little bit more fickle and demanding. We have the ability, the desire to stay in our own homes. So that consumer-driven nature of healthcare is across all segments. But we see it really coming to fruition. We believe care at home is the best setting, of course, to deliver that. So we believe we're going to continue to go in many ways on those, following those themes of time saving for the clinicians, make sure that we are squeezing every ounce out of their day we can, that we are focusing on clinician satisfaction, which should be a direct result of that. Equally, if not more important, hard to separate the two, is the consumer and their family satisfaction with the services our customers provide. Are we able to help our customers give dependable, high quality service in the home. And what can we do to make that happen? As you've said, where's the industry more broadly going? And there's a lot of talk these days about COVID and the lessons learned that people do not want to go to a hospital if they can even, in fact, get into the hospital. People certainly don't want to go to a nursing home if they can avoid it, although we know the post-acute world is certainly going through dramatic change. So where we see care at home going is that we're going to continue to grow, as we've been expecting and talking about for a long while, filling in those gaps in the patient's experience, pre-acute, post-acute, across the span of their life, wellness. And after talking about these themes for a very long time, COVID's sort of been an accelerant, which has gotten us to that point where we've had to adopt this technology, which we've been thinking about and working on for a long while, and now it's coming to fruition. So last major overarching theme I mentioned, and there's lots more we could bring up, but interoperability, as we talk about how we fit in that overarching healthcare continuum, is how do we make sure that home health isn't out on an island, post-acute only, and only if you're 65 or older. How do we make sure that care at home is incorporated and interoperable with the other segments of healthcare? And that too is a long overarching theme, and one which again we're seeing major dramatic improvements, mostly from political pressure, frankly, as the government has said no more to the vendors who are locking other vendors out. So lots happening. Most of it's not brand new. Most of it are things that we've been working on. It's just the intensity and the opportunity, I would say, are sharpened.
Interoperability is been on everyone's mind lately. One of the factors I think that we have seen that affects it is the consolidation in the industry. Tony, you have been on both sides, and when we sit today, we're looking at what used to be 40 or 50 home care EMR vendors, now under the umbrella of about 5 different companies. It's been a dramatic change in the 27 years I've been around, and Keith, I know that you have seen a small number of companies explode into 50 or more, and then back again. So, how is that going to impact your ability to compete as Delta? How's it going to impact caregivers and patients?
Yeah, that's a good question, Tim. But we definitely have seen that consolidation in the industry, and I think for us, we feel it uniquely positions us a little bit because we are not private equity backed. We are privately owned. We do have this industry knowledge that we're operating with, and so we aren't huge. We don't have. We're not as big as some of the huge providers, but we do feel that that this consolidation can end up being a positive. Some of these some customers feel left behind because products that they were on are being discontinued and things are just consolidating. So the consolidation is definitely there. For us, we like our position. We like being privately run. It gives us the ability to look out a little further. We don't have to set our time horizons at 2 years and say that's when investors are looking for their money back. We can make more strategic decisions, even decisions that might take a little while to have a return on investment.
We are very close to the end of our time. I know that the people who have been with us need to get off to work. So I want to move in the direction of wrapping up, but I want to make sure that I get both of you to give one last answer, and I ask this question all of the time. Optimistic or pessimistic about the future of home health, home care, and hospice within the U.S. healthcare system? Either one of you can go first.
So I'll go first. So I'm very optimistic. I think we think of the world of, it used to be that home care was maybe someone got home care so they didn't need to move in with their children. And then it went, maybe get home care instead of moving into a nursing home. Well, now we have projects, the CMS hospital at home. Now it's, you get home care so you don't need to be in the hospital. So care at home is doing nothing but growing. Now there's a challenge with too many in need and not enough caregivers. And we hope, well, technology can maybe help take the edge on that a little bit, make sure they have the right data, the right tools. But we all want to age at all.
And I agree. again, it's one of those things with the benefit of history and a long history. This isn't a new belief, right? Those of us who've spent our lives in care at home have been saying for a long while, time to wake up, healthcare world, time to wake up, government regulators. Care with the highest quality outcomes, the lowest cost is care delivered in the home. We know that there's not a person I've ever met, despite I have many friends in the nursing home industry, but I haven't met many people who say, I really want to age at home and die at a nursing home. So what's gratifying is to see that message is getting through. And COVID has been an opportunity where the heroes on the front lines, yes, many in the hospitals, horrific what healthcare has been through in the last several months. But the beautiful thing is people realizing the unique value that care at home provides. And all those other factors, the demographics, the economics, those still exist. And again, I see COVID as an accelerant that has brought to the forefront the value that home care brings. So absolutely optimistic, looking forward to the future. I occasionally get asked because of light hair if I'm thinking about retirement. I first check with Tony to see if he's thinking about my retirement. When he and I last had that discussion, he said, just don't surprise me, not at all. Take your time. And frankly, I'm having fun. And I think the best days are definitely ahead of us, both as a company and as an industry. We believe our company can only follow the industry. Good times in the industry gives us an opportunity to have good times at Delta. And we think that the future is indeed bright. So I'm optimistic, and we're optimistic as a company.
That's a great message to leave us with. Thank you very much. Keith Crownover, the president of Delta Health Technologies, and Tony Ott, the CEO. I want to thank all of you for staying with us for these last few minutes and hope that you enjoyed this series. Keith, Tony, thank you very much for being here with us.
Thank you.
We're going to continue to do this. If you would like to be one of the people we interview, you can write to me at editor@homecaretechreport.com. If you enjoy this series, just drop me a line at the same email address. And Keith, you left me with something that I think it's good to finish with. Yes, we have our advocates in the industry who help talk to the regulators and tell them what the industry needs, but we can't leave it all up to them. I hear this from Bill Dombey at NOC all the time. We all have to pitch in and let our representatives know how important we are, especially what you said, Keith, how we are the segment of the healthcare industry with the best outcomes at the lowest cost. So let me leave this with a plea for everybody to get a little bit more active, letting our representatives know how important we are and exactly what we need in order to continue to do that job. All right, thanks again, gentlemen. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you, Tim.
And thanks to all of you for joining us. I'm Tim Rowan. We'll see you next time.